welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and today we're going to be doing a trope recommendation video for surprise pregnancy romance. So I say that this is not one of my favorite tropes, and that is true. There are many that I am not a fan of, but some of my favorite books of all time have this trope. So basically, if it's done well, it can be so freaking good. But if it's not done well, the books are shitty. So I actually have two previous surprise pregnancy romance recommendation videos, so I will link both of those down below. And you can get even more surprise pregnancy trope recommendations if you have not seen those videos yet. But in this one, I am going to do all new ones from those previous videos, and we're just gonna get into them because I have quite a few. So the first couple that I have are ones that are surprise pregnancy with it's announced in this blurb that they're surprise pregnancy, but I do have one that is a spoiler for it being surprise pregnancy, so I will like give you a spoiler warning beforehand and you can skip that one if you want. I'll do it last, that way you can just like turn off the video if you don't want to hear the spoiler one. And then I do have one that's actually more like it's surprise pregnancy, but it's also like secret baby. So I'll let you know that one as well. So for the first couple that are just like regular surprise pregnancy romances, the first one that I have is one of my all-time favorite books now. It was one of the first books that I read in 2024. I read it in January and I am 100% obsessed with it and very sure that it's going to end up on my favorite books of 2024, and that is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I am a huge Hannah Bonham Young fan. Next of Kin by her was on my top favorites of 2023. She just writes absolutely amazing romances, and Out on a Limb is so freaking good. So this one is about a girl named Wynn, and she has a limb difference, so one of her arms is like not as developed as the other one, and she's at a party and she ends up meeting this guy named Beau, and Beau actually has a prosthetic leg. He lost his leg due to cancer, and they end up bonding over this and they have a one-night stand. And then a couple of weeks later, Wynn tracks down Beau and tells him that she is pregnant. And Beau is really excited about this because he actually wasn't sure if he was going to be able to have kids because of the chemo that he went through with his cancer. And so he's really, really excited to be a dad and is like, I want to be involved. I'm all in. And they end up having this really, really amazing friendship and romance, and they move in together, so it's forced proximity, and it is so, so well done. It is just a warm hug kind of a book. There is not a whole ton of like angst, I should say. Like there is some, but it's not like overly complicated, angsty, difficult kind of book. It's more of a sweet, warm hug kind of a romance, and I love it with my whole heart. Both of the characters are just so amazing, and finding a love like that is just a dream, and I love it so much. So if you haven't picked it up, I would definitely recommend it. It's one of my all-time favorite surprise pregnancy romances now. The next one that I have is another one of my all-time favorite books, and it was actually one of my top favorite books of last year, and that is Reckless by Elsie Silver. This one is about a girl named Winter, and she is going through a rough time in her life, honestly. She just got divorced recently, and she moved, and she ends up she's starting to reconnect with her like estranged sister, and she ends up going to like a family dinner at her sister's house and meeting this guy named Theo, and they end up having a one-night stand, and she tries to tell him when she finds out that she's pregnant, and there's a issue with the communication, and so she thinks that he is not into it, but turns out he never got the message, and so when he comes back to town, he finds out that he has a daughter, and he becomes all in, not only with his daughter, but also with Winter. And Winter is the kind of person where she kind of rubs people the wrong way. Like she comes across as kind of a little bit bitchy, like she's got some difficulties about her. And Theo is the first person to come to her defense. He is always like, don't you dare talk about Winter like that. That is the mother of my child. Don't you talk to her, don't you talk like that about her, and I absolutely love it. This is also a neighbors one because they do end up living right next door to each other, which is just so fun, and I love the little family that they end up being. It's so fucking cute, so I would highly, highly, highly recommend this romance. I adore Winter and Theo with my whole heart. It's so good. Definitely pick it up. The next one that I have is Onetimer by Tegan Hunter. This is a hockey romance, and I gotta check what their names are because of course I don't fucking remember. So this one is about Hollis and Lowell. So they end up meeting each other at Hollis's sister's wedding, which is also the teammate of Lowell's wedding. And Lowell is not a huge fan of weddings. He's not a real like relationship kind of guy, and they end up having a one-night stand at this wedding, and Hollis a couple of weeks later actually thinks that she has food poisoning, and it turns out she doesn't have food poisoning, she's pregnant. And so the two of them end up having this friendship where they're gonna try and raise the baby together, but they are both very attracted to each other, but they've both had difficulties in past relationships, so they are slightly apprehensive to get into a new relationship. But I love the way that Lowell is just there for Hollis every step of the way with the pregnancy. Even though he's had been burned in the past by women, he becomes all in, and that is my favorite thing about surprise pregnancy romances that I found. If a guy goes all in with the baby and with the woman, I love that. I think it's amazing, and it just makes me so happy to read a book like that. And one thing that I love about Tegan Hunter's hockey romances, like this series, is that they are so low angst. So if you want something that's just a good time and that's not going to cause you like a ton of stress and it's just going to be a quick fun read, this series by Tegan Hunter is a really good one for that. Each book, I think I gave almost every single book in this series like 4 stars-ish, and they're just a good time. So if you just want like an easy, good time surprise pregnancy romance, would recommend this one. The next one that I have is The Bride's Runaway Billionaire by Pippa Grant. This one is the 3rd book in the 3 Friends and a Wedding, I think is the name of this series. And I have to look up what their name is also because I really fucking don't remember. Yeah, 3 BFFs and a Wedding is the name of this series. So this one is about Emma, who recently became the star of a viral video when she runs away from her wedding. When she is about to get married to her longtime boyfriend, there is a ton of reveals at the altar when she finds out who her fiance actually was and what actually happened. And there's this huge viral video that happens, and this actually takes place in book 1 of the series. The wedding like actually takes place in book 1 of the series. So I would actually really recommend reading that book because it's absolutely hilarious and gives you some really good background on Emma. But at the end of that book, there's this crazy viral video that happens that Emma becomes the star of when she runs away from her wedding. And she ends up she does not like all the attention. She doesn't like all this stuff about her, like people knowing who she is and what her business is. And so her brother helps her like go to this private Fiji island for her honeymoon by herself. She's like, I just need to get away. And so she goes to this super private island in Fiji for her honeymoon. And when she's there, she ends up meeting Jonas, who has recently been the star of his own PR type scandal when his divorce was recently announced. He's been divorced for a while, but it was recently announced, and he's an actor, so it was like big news. And he is what is a actor for this company called Razzle Dazzle, which basically makes kind of sounds like they make Hallmark movies, honestly. Like that's the vibe that I get from them. They're just like good feel-good movies, but like kind of low budget feel-good movies, and he's the star of these movies. And they end up meeting each other and kind of developing this friendship. They're alone. There's not that many people on this island. They're together. They're both struggling, and they end up forming this like unlikely friendship. And on the last night in Fiji, they end up having a one-night stand, and Jonas ends up leaving in the middle of the night without any sort of contact information, any sort of goodbye to Emma. And so Emma's pretty pissed about this, but as she should. But she ends up finding out that she's pregnant, and then the book does like a time jump a couple of years later when Emma's kid is like 4 or 5 years old, and her brother is getting married, and the baby, her son, who's now 5 years old, is the ring bearer for this wedding. And Jonas shows up in town and is like, I want to be a part of my son's life, because he recently found out that he has a kid. And so then Emma and Jonas end up having to deal with their issues, figure out how this is going to work with him wanting to be part of his child's life now. And it is just a fun book. Honestly, Pippa Grant is, I always read Pippa Grant when I'm just like needing a laugh, needing to be happy. Her books always just make me smile. They're so fun, and I just have a really, really good time with them. So this one is more like Secret Baby as well, just because the kid is older by the time he finds out that he has a kid. But she wasn't hiding the kid from him, like she told him, but he just never got the message. And so there is like a surprise baby element because she does get pregnant after a one-night stand. It's a surprise, unplanned pregnancy. So it's a really fun book. I had a good time with it. I gave it 4 stars. Like I said, her books just make me smile, and they're just a really, really good time. So if you just want, like I said, with One-Timer and that Tegan Hunter series, if you just want a fun read that's just a good time, would recommend this one as well. So the next one that I have is another one that's a little bit more secret baby than surprise pregnancy, but there is a surprise pregnancy in it, and that is Contemn to Love by Siobhan Davis. So this one is a mafia romance, so it is a darker romance. There are more dark elements in this one, so please read trigger warnings if you need that sort of thing, because this is, like I said, it's darker. It's not just like a sweet, easy surprise pregnancy romance like the other ones. So this one is about Bennett, I believe is the hero's name, and he is the illegitimate son for this mafia heir, and he never knew that until growing up. And then when he gets to a certain age, his father needs him to take over for things, and so he ends up being thrust into this world of mafia stuff. And the heroine knew him as a kid. She actually had a crush on him when she was younger, but then he left and she never saw him again. And I actually think that he dated her sister, so this is like sister's ex-boyfriend. But one day she is in celebrating her birthday with some girlfriends in Vegas, and she gets herself into this really bad situation where she ends up seeing this mafia guy again, the hero again, but he's now this ruthless mafia leader. He's a killer, and she gets into this very bad situation, but she ends up having sex with the guy that she knew as a child, Bennett. And when she survives and she gets out of there, she doesn't want anything to do with that. She is like, that is scary and life in danger. I don't want to be a part of that. And so when she finds out that she's pregnant, she does not want to tell Bennett about it because she does not want her baby to be in danger. And so she does not contact him, does not tell him, nothing. This is a true secret baby one, and she doesn't tell him. So then years later, when he shows up in town and he sees the heroine with a kid, he's like, holy shit, that's my kid. And he ends up kind of kidnapping them. I mean, like, he gives them a choice, but not really. And ends up taking the heroine and his child back with him because he's like, I want to be part of this. This is my kid. I want to protect them. And he brings them into mafia life, into his house to try and protect them and to be with them. And the heroine is not happy about this. She does not want her kid involved in any sort of mafia stuff. But it is a secret baby one. It's a surprise pregnancy, and it's a good time. Like, I had a fun time with it. There is, since this is a dark romance, there is a lot more like grittier elements to it, which I had a fun time with. And you do get like I'm not usually a fan of like secret babies, so like ones where the heroine like never tells them, except in mafia. Within mafia, I'm like, yes, that makes sense to me. Because the moms don't want the kids involved in any mafia elements. So I always find that part so interesting. And when the heroes come back, they're like, what the fuck? That's my kid. And the like possessiveness that they have over them is just, it's so good. But this was a truly solid mafia romance. I had a great time with it, and I would recommend it. So we are now to the last one that I'm going to talk about for this video, which is one that the surprise baby happens in the third act. It's towards the end, and it's kind of like third act element. So, and it is not shared on the blurb. So if that is not something that you want to know about, would be considered a spoiler. If that's not something you want to know, then skip ahead, or you can leave, I guess. And but this is the last one for this video, and we're gonna go into it now, and that is Forbidden Hearts by Corinne Michaels. So this one is a single dad nanny romance, and it is a surprise pregnancy in the third act. So the heroine in this one, had a relationship with her college professor, and she thought that it was going to be a good relationship, but it turns out that he is married and not planning to leave his wife, and he's just like a skeezy guy all around, and he kind of preyed on her. And so she is so embarrassed by this, so upset by this, that she ends up leaving school. She's in graduate school and she ends up leaving school. She ends up going home to her dad's house, and she wants to transfer schools, and she doesn't tell him. She doesn't want to say anything to him, let him know what's going on. But her father's like, you should help out, get a job maybe, like while you're deciding where you're gonna switch schools to. And the sheriff of the small town ends up needing a nanny. His daughter is deaf, and he needs somebody who speaks ASL to be her nanny, and the heroine speaks ASL. So even though the hero does not super trust the heroine because she's kind of known for being a little bit chaotic, he has no choice. He reluctantly hires her, and she ends up kind of staying in his house on the days where he is working like overnight shifts, because he is a sheriff or a firefighter or something like that, first responder. So he has really long shifts, and so she needs to stay at the house when he works overnights, and she ends up becoming the nanny for this young girl who is deaf. And the two of them end up having a romance. The hero and the heroine end up having a romance, and he finds out about her past and the professor that she had this relationship with, but there is a surprise pregnancy in the third act. So when they do have a kind of a, is this gonna work out? Do we have to leave? Like, are we gonna break up kind of situation? The heroine does find out that she's pregnant. So that is not my favorite thing in a romance. So I wanted to let you guys know that that is there, but I did end up really enjoying this book. I gave it 4 stars. I liked the hero, and I liked the heroine, and I liked the story. I loved the hero's daughter, so she was so cute. So I would actually recommend this romance. So even though that element is not usually my favorite, I didn't mind it in this book, and I would recommend it. But that's all I have for this video. So thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe, stick around, see more content from me, and leave me a baby emoji in the comments. I think there's a baby emoji. But that's gonna be it, so I hope that you have the absolute best day. Bye!